Cafe owner employs homeless man. 2 weeks later, she finds this in the kitchen. Homelessness is a persistent and significant global problem stretching back for decades. Back then, the world didn't discuss such issues as openly as we do today. Unfortunately, a common misconception lingers, leading many to assume that homeless individuals seek handouts, indulging in vices like alcohol and drugs. While there are instances where this holds true, more often than not, homelessness arises from genuine and valid reasons. Notably, many war veterans returning from overseas struggle to readjust to civilian life, leaving them homeless. Additionally, released prisoners face difficulties in finding a second chance, leading to dire circumstances when their limited resources run out. Thankfully, some individuals are willing to extend a helping hand to the homeless. Though small donations may provide a hot meal, they are insufficient to solve the underlying problem. Nevertheless, there are also those who go beyond short-term aid, working to address homelessness at its core. Through understanding, empathy, and concerted efforts, we can combat homelessness. By supporting organizations and initiatives that aim to provide stable housing, support services, and opportunities for the homeless to rebuild their lives, we can foster lasting change and help them transition away from life on the streets. Allow me to share a heartwarming tale of a cafe owner who took a chance and hired a homeless man. Then, just 2 weeks later, an incredible surprise awaited her in the kitchen. Two special people's journeys began in March of 2016. Cija Abigail owned Abby's Cafe in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In fact, she was the 20th owner of this establishment that previous owners just could not keep up and running on their own or had chosen not to. Taking over the cafe was her dream. Cija was very proud of her cafe. She always worked hard, but regardless of her hard work, she had to fight to keep her business afloat. She had gone through some very tough times financially, especially during the recession. She was incredibly overworked trying to make ends meet, but she did what she had to do in order to keep her dream alive. She could barely afford to cut herself a paycheck, so she really couldn't hire any help. She was just trying to run the cafe on her own so the doors could stay open. On that day in March, a man came into the cafe. Cija could tell immediately that the man was homeless. He looked tired, and she could tell that he'd been living on the streets. He walked up to the counter where Cija was standing, and he asked for money. Well, he didn't seem shy or nervous about asking. He looked her right in the eye when he asked. She told him that nothing in life is free, and she asked him why he didn't have a job to support himself. The man told her that his name was Marcus, and he wanted nothing more than to have a job where he could have a steady income so that he could find a place to live. Unfortunately, he had a criminal record. He'd made mistakes in his life that he regretted, and that he had also paid for. When he was released from prison, he couldn't seem to find anyone who was willing to give him a second chance and give him a job. He told Cija that he'd gone to plenty of places looking for work. When people found out about his criminal record, though, they turned him away. Now that he's been on the streets for so long, getting a job was even more difficult. You could tell by his appearance that he had been living on the streets. When people saw him, they didn't want to give him a job. In fact, they didn't even want him near their place of business. Marcus' story broke Cija's heart. She decided that if nobody else was going to help this man, she would. Because she was so overworked, she decided to let the man work in the cafe. She needed some help, and he needed some help. She could barely afford to pay him, but she did allow him to work there anyway. Cija was the first person in years who was willing to look beyond Marcus's criminal past and judge him for the person that he was when he walked into the cafe. A man who needed a second chance. She offered Marcus a 2-hour shift each day. He was thrilled because it meant that he could finally get something to eat on a regular basis. Over the course of 2 weeks, Marcus showed up each day, on time, for his 2-hour shift. He did just about everything in the cafe, from doing the dishes to taking out the trash. He didn't mind the work because it meant that he was finally earning his own money rather than panhandling for handouts. After 2 weeks, Cija was so inspired by Marcus and his work ethic that she wanted to share her story, so she created a post on Facebook. And it read, "I was short-staffed that day, so I asked him, 'You want to work? I have a job for you.' His eyes opened wide and his smile made my day. He said, 'I'll do anything for some food.' So now, for almost 2 weeks, he's been on time for his 2-hour shift, helping take out the trash, washing dishes, etc. Once I paid him, guess what he does? He buys food from my restaurant. He decides to pay because it makes him feel good. With his new job, Marcus has found new confidence in himself, and he's a changed man. Do something nice for someone today, and don't judge them just because they're out asking for money, for we don't know their situation. Some deserve another shot. God gave me this blessing, so why can't I bless others? Soon after Cija shared that Facebook post, it rapidly spread like wildfire across the internet. Thousands of people shared it, and it received an astounding 3.6 million likes. People from all corners of the globe were deeply touched and inspired by Cija's story. Her happiness did not stem from the attention it garnered, but rather from the hope that at least one person would be motivated to perform a kind act for someone, just as she did.